Hi, and welcome back to Continual. It's another episode of Hot Off the Press, the show about new releases and the authors that bring them to you. I'm your host, Jim Nettles, and let's find out who is bringing in a bunch of stuff to stack up those to-be-read piles. And Terry, you are up first.
Hi. Thanks, Jim. I'm back with a historical romance. That's what I write. And though usually I'm in medieval times, this time I've kind of jumped a couple hundred years forward into the Regency era. And I'm working in Scotland at that point. So first book in a new series.
I'd have known that. I'd have come kilted tonight. Nina, you are up next.
All right. Well, I'm Nina Crespo. I write books that range from sizzling to small town sexy. My new release is actually part of a multi-author series. And so all of the books are standalone. It's book 3, I believe, in this series, or book 2 in this series. And so it's just a lot of fun, a lot of family saga drama with the Fortunes.
Tori?
Hi. I have a few pen names, but tonight I'm here as Tori Kellett, and I write alien romance, usually involving 7-foot-tall green or purple warriors and the human women that they fall in love with.
Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Kensing. I write steamy contemporary and paranormal historical queer romance, sometimes with tentacles, although my newest release does not have any actual tentacle loving in this particular book. It's still very dirty, though.
Meghan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Meghan Maslow, and I write mischief, magic, and murder, which basically means I like comedy, I like dead bodies, and I like fantasy in my romances. I swear, even with the dead bodies, you always get a happy ending from me.
Do not make the comment. Do not make... Kindra!
It's not one of the MCs.
I'm kind of the oddball in this group here. I do write some, it's not really romance. It's, I work in the erotic subgenre of horror as well as science fiction. So I'm definitely the oddball out of the group today.
So let's find out. There seems to be a lot of love in the air as we get around this evening, across the ages and across the stars. So, Terry, why don't we find out a little bit more? What kind of world are we going to be stepping into? So when we come in, kind of what's the big setup for the book?
The setup is, again, Regency Edinburgh, which is a little different than what you'll find in most Regency historicals. So you're in Edinburgh at the time. It's considered the Athens of the North. It's an explosion of advances in medicine and law and industry and education. And into this come my characters, one who was an explorer and was kind of... There were rumors about his explorations, and he's kind of got a little bit of an edgy reputation that's only saved when he inherits unexpectedly, based on my series, The Unexpected Heirs of Scotland. And he's just about gotten things settled in his life, and in comes this woman who believes he is the reason for her father's death. And so she's trying to find a way to prove what this man did. The truth, though, is somewhere not expected.
Nina, how about you? What world are you bringing us into with this one?
Well, as I mentioned, it's a multi-author series featuring a family called the Fortunes. And so let me say, each of the books are standalone, but within the 7 books that are part of this series, there is kind of a little bit of a mystery. So there is a benefit of reading all 7 books. But with my books, Fortune's Dream House, for some reason, I'm having a hard time saying that. But Max has recently inherited a fortune or some money along with his brothers, and he wants to buy a house. And Eliza is a real estate agent. But the catch is, for Max to be able to buy his dream house, they have to pretend that they're in a relationship, and where they think it's only going to be for a very brief period of time, it ends up being a lot more than they expected. And then thrown in the middle of that is a Valentine's bachelor auction where, she ends up having to, help Max out of a situation in that. So it's a lot going on, but it's a lot of fun.
Please tell me there's a misfortune joke somewhere in there. Just
I don't know. I can't say too much.
Tori, how about you? What world are we stepping into with this one?
Okay. My sci-fi romance series is set on a planet called Ishtan. And the background and the point at which my story starts is that this was a few centuries ago a peaceful farming planet, and then the king at that time discovered these very valuable crystals that are not only a fantastic power source, but they're worth a lot of money. And all of a sudden, Ishtan became this huge, big deal in and amongst the planets, where they were just like this little quiet area and they kept themselves to themselves. And one thing led to another, and another king got really greedy and decided that he was going to help himself to things that weren't his from other places. And they got decimated basically in a war, which was their own fault. And at the last ditch attempt to stop all the warriors being killed, they all agreed to take part in this gene coding experiment, which made the males very strong. Made them very hard to kill. They healed very rapidly. Unfortunately, it also killed their women, their females. And so at the start of my story, we've got a planet that has spaceships and incredible technology, but they also are starving. They've got nothing to feed the people with. There's hardly anybody there. And it starts again with 4 princes who are doing their best to take over from their father, who's one of the kings that screwed everything up. But unfortunately, because of the law of the land, the elder prince can't be crowned without a queen, and there are no females available. And that's where the story starts, because they happen to help themselves to a few spare ones on Earth.
As one does.
That gives new meaning to being swept off your feet.
Yeah.
All right, Anna.
So this book is a contemporary romance, and normally I'm very much a sense of place writer. I like to travel to places, and I like to write about places that I travel to, and I like to really dig into the history. But this particular book takes place over a weekend in one house. And so it starts with a young man who shows up on the doorstep of his ex-boyfriend's father, because his ex-boyfriend has just cheated on him, and that's why they're exes. And so he decides to seduce his ex-boyfriend's dad. And so that's how the book starts, is him standing on the front steps of his ex-boyfriend's dad's house, ready to sweep him off his feet.
Also, as one does.
As one does.
Yeah.
One must keep it in the family.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Megan.
So I unexpectedly ended up with 2 releases right around the same time. So I will briefly talk about both of them. Demons for the Win is in my Much Ado About Demons series. It's a fantasy book. It is based in a place called Verona. It has lots of Shakespeare references. I have a real thing for Shakespeare. And it is basically a bunch of cinnamon roll lust demons who end up with mates. It's my sweetest series. And then Cat's Chance in Hell is set in Baltimore. And as I like to say, Charm City is many things, but it is not forgiving. It's my grittier side of my brand. It also has humor, but it is more snarktastic. And it is about a Siamese shifter, so you can imagine the attitude, who sort of meets his match. And it is not love at first sight. I will say that. And Demons for the Win, it is very much a, fated mates kind of love at first sight thing. Cat's Chance in Hell is not that. It is definitely an enemies to lovers. Oh my God, I can't believe I like this guy.
I want to make a joke about swiping something off the counter, but I'll be nice.
You can make jokes all you want with this group.
All right, Kendra.
So as far as newest releases go, it's not really a new release. It's a 7-book series, basically, that was all re-released all at one time. It's my science fiction, dystopian, superhero fiction kind of genre blend series that I re-released all at one time, where it delves into the future United States, where we have these people with special abilities that the government has made these huge strides in medical and genetic testing, things like that. So they've decided that they're going to try to use these people to their advantage, and it doesn't work out very well for them at all.
Well, let's find out a little bit more, because of course, the important part of every story, the setups are always fun, but who are we hanging out? Who are we taking the journey with? So Nina, let's find out a little bit more about the fortunes and their fates.
Oh wow. I mean, there's not a lot that I can say because there's like secrets embedded in this series. There's like
Who are they? Who are we hanging out with?
Who are we hanging out with? Well, Max, as I said, he has inherited money. He's come from a family that doesn't have he didn't have a lot of money growing up. And so this is a new experience for him in terms of, learning what his tastes are and being able to spend money in the way that he would like to. Eliza, she comes from, she's an only child. I wouldn't say that she's spoiled, but she's someone who's driven and who's very supported by her parents. And she is a real estate agent in a small town where real estate is at a premium, and trying to find houses for Max isn't the easiest thing to do. So, at the beginning of the book, part of the issue is that Max has been, every time they find a house, he changes his mind and pulls out of the deal. And so she's at a point where like, hey, look, buddy, I'm kind of getting tired of this situation with you. And he confesses to her that he hasn't received the money yet, but it's coming. It's coming. And so, the money does arrive in a very kind of unique situation. But these two are just a fun couple to be with in terms of getting caught in a relationship that they were not expecting to be a part of in a small town where everybody knows everything, and trying to explain, well, this whole thing about being together, but also how do we explain to people that we're really not together afterwards? But then how do we explain to people that, oh no, now we're together? So it's
now we're together, not just together.
We're together. We've sealed the deal, so we're together.
Tori, who are we getting to spend more time with in this series?
Well, is my alien king, or a prince as this starts off with. Lots of abs, as you can see, even though they're blue or grey, whatever. the start is that one of the brothers has basically kidnapped 6 females from Earth via a wormhole, and he didn't have much chance to find out anything about them, except they managed to set parameters like they couldn't be married, they didn't have kids, they didn't, they lived alone, that sort of stuff. And then he just scoops up these women and takes them back. And so the first book is, my heroine is called Callie Glister, and she was married, and he ran off and left her with a lot of debt because they'd been trying for 20 years to have fertility treatments, and all that sort of thing really stacked up. And he left her holding the purse, not the baby, because they didn't get that far. So she's working 3 jobs. She's in a crappy apartment. She's gone from like this Hollywood mansion where she was with this no good guy, and then she's having to pay all this stuff off. So the first one is, because she's the oldest of the women that have been taken, and she's really like common sense and, look, I don't care if you're this prince, you'll do what I say, sort of thing, And my first prince, or like crown prince, he asks her to be his queen because he's running out of time. He's got literally 2 days before his 40th birthday. And on his 40th birthday, he has to be crowned with a queen, or his father, his nutcase father, carries on for another 17 years till his younger brother comes of age. And she agrees, but she does tell him that, and this is the whole point of it, that he wants her to have kids and she can't have them, but he falls in love with her anyway. And it's all about found family rather than biological family, which is one of my favorite themes through the books. And I like it because the reason that he had to have a queen, he fell in love with the one woman who couldn't give him that particular reason.
Anna, who are we going to be hanging out with in this one?
So I've got some ads as well. So Silas is the one of the main characters. He is 22. He's a recent theater grad, and he has been working on a musical that he wants to someday have on Broadway. It was his senior project in theater school. And Logan is his ex-boyfriend's dad, so much older. There's a 25-ish year age gap in this story. Logan's an entertainment lawyer, and he has a lot of clients who put on Broadway shows. And so ultimately he ends up connecting Silas with a producer who can help him put on his show. But in the meantime, there's a lot of, oh, we can't, it's wrong, you're too young, you're my ex's father, blah, blah, blah. And, but they, so they've known each other, they've known each other for a while because Silas has been involved with Logan's son. And there's always been a little bit of something between them, and neither of them acted on it until Silas's boyfriend ruined everything. And Silas took this opportunity to see whether there could be anything with his ex-boyfriend's dad. It's very, very dirty.
Gives a whole new meaning to daddy issues. So
there's some daddy role playing in this particular book, if that's your thing. So yeah, there's some daddy issues in this book for sure.
Megan, save me.
You're in trouble. in Demon for the Win, the two main characters are Kem and Thule. Kem is an incubus, so he's a lust demon. It opens in a sex club that he works for. Thule is, well, okay, so Kem is a character who everyone wants to either do or be, or both. And he's sort of effortlessly cool. You know, he's one of these demons who he knows his worth. He has, you know, his life it consists of having a good time. Thule, on the other hand, is a little dryad who's very cute. And he works as a sous chef at a very upscale restaurant in Verona. And he gets dragged to a sex club, and it is definitely not his scene. However, you know, you can't really resist Kem's wiles. And so they end up having what's going to be, you know, just one night. And the next morning, Thule disappears because it never occurs to him that Kem would ever think, you know, would want something with him. He's just himself, while Kem is sort of magnificent. And so he disappears back into his life. And in the meantime, Kem is trying to find him. And Thule manages to get himself into all sorts of trouble that in the end, but he, you know, he's self-rescuing, but he also could use a little help. So, and they're both very sweet characters. In Cat's Chance from Hell, the main two characters are Carter Strike, who again is a Siamese cat with so much attitude. And he works for Charm City's one and only demon, who's a murder twink, basically. His story is the first one in the series, and this is the second, and Carter's the feline fatale. And he's sent to find out his boss's lover the contract has been put out in his life, and he's been charged with finding out who's done it. And all the arrows are pointing to one area of town, and in particular, one person. And so when he shows up there, he expects this to be an easy solve. But the problem is it's a Rakshasa, and Rakshasa have a lot of pull over shifters. In fact, shifters really have, especially cats, have a really hard time resisting a Rakshasa. And again, it's sort of hate at first sight, and yet they can't keep their hands off each other. And there's lots of twists and turns in this one. There's lots of surprises. But they are not as cinnamon rolling in their relations. And it's also a pretty steamy, kinky book.
So, Jim, are you sensing a theme here?
Slightly.
It's either sex and abs or sex and no abs. Or
yes, the middle row is plenty of abs. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna. Y'all are the center of the six pack. Okay, just go with that. Kindra, save me. At some point, I will hit somewhere where I can't get myself in trouble. I don't know where that is.
I'll try. I have no abs and no kink, so I may be able to help you.
So who are we going to be meeting and hanging out with in the series?
So in this series, we're hanging out with quite a few people, but I'll stick with the more important folks. So we've got Mila here and her group of friends who all have some kind of genetic ability. Mila is what I have coined what do I call her? Atomic telekinetic. She has telekinesis, but she can tap into the atomic structure of pretty much anything and cause nuclear fission inside someone's body or things like that. So we have her, and then we've got our villain. His name is Emerson King. He's the president of the United States at the time. It's like 100 years in the future. And he wants to use these people for his own gain to basically gain world dominance. And then we have a man named John Baker, who is in a spin-off series written by a writing partner of mine named Brian Tan. We have him, and he is a nano soldier that was created by Emerson King and his doctors to bring Mila back after she escapes his grasp. So,
light reading.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Terry, who do we get to hang out with as we go through traipsing through Regency Scotland?
Regency Scotland and part of the world. The main character is Joshua Robertson, and I decided when I was planning out this series that the heroes are all based on my crushes. people on my special dispensation list. And so Joshua Robertson is a thinly disguised Josh Gates, archaeologist, explorer, adventurer. And my Joshua had discovered the ruins of a Roman city, and along with his illustrator, created a big report and wrote a book, and everything was hunky-dory until the illustrator started spreading rumors of a buried treasure, secret maps, and then worse, because then the unsavory kind of rumors got started. And Josh has done his best to handle them and squash them and take care of them, and now he has been he's inherited a title, and that's given him some protection. In those times, nobles could not be charged with certain crimes, and so it really helped him to become a noble at that point. However, the unsavory character left behind, as I mentioned before, a daughter, Arabella, and she has lived with her father's hate and is determined. What she grew up with it was all Josh's fault. Josh did all the bad things. He was the one that ruined everything. And so she wants to get vengeance on him. So she disguises herself and gets hired into his household as his housekeeper. And he's very dismayed because he really likes her and he knows he shouldn't like her. And she's really dismayed because he is not anything like the person she expected. And so as the story goes on, she's hiding more from him as she's discovering more about him. And so when they end up in danger and it all comes to light, it's kind of an interesting situation. So we'll be seeing Roman ruins. We'll be seeing universities in Edinburgh. We'll be seeing, lots of fun places. And Josh Gates, thinly disguised in my hero.
And you're not yet doing the Scotch distillery tasting, but you'll have to. So kind of on the next thing, I'm going to shake up my order a little bit because, Nina, I know both you and Tori's got a hop for something else. So I'm going to mix up my order a little bit and create some chaos because somebody was dumb enough to leave me in control. So, Nina.
Yes.
One of my most favorite parts of being an author, being a creator, doing the things that we do with the written word are the rabbit holes we fall down, the things we get to discover, the things we sometimes discover about ourselves, our characters, process, or just in doing research.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the one thing that when you were working on this, when you were all of a sudden like, huh?
Oh, there were a few things, but I think the one that stands out was creating the Valentine's bachelor auction. Because in my stories, I've written about male review dancers on stage. I've written about international DJs. I have not written, or up until this point, had not written a story about a Valentine's Day auction. So I, of course, had to go out and research what this might look like, what this might, entail. So I found everything from kind of strutting your stuff on stage in Alaska with boas and all kinds of things to, the really kind of highbrow in a tux, doctor, lawyer on stage type thing. So it was interesting to see the variety. And then, of course, with this story, because it's set in Texas and we've got cowboys and cowgirls, it's like, okay, well, we've got to put a little bit of a Texas thing on it. And so, of course, I went for the obvious. This was a charity auction to save the environment. So in my mind, it was like, save a fish, ride a cowboy. Save a snake, ride a cowboy, or maybe not that connotation, but it was just kind of fun pulling this together to see what we could come up with. And there was a little bit of pressure because, it started with my story and it had to resonate with the books that came afterwards. So I was also lucky to have other authors be able to give me an idea of, what this could be and what it might look like.
So in other words, you had to go for a different kind of roundup.
Yes.
And
That's a lot harder to do in a multi-author, because you really have to align with everyone, or it doesn't work.
The truth is, we know
share scenes and everything, to make sure that what was being said in one book matched up with what was in the other, and just kind of the mood, everything. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get myself in trouble because I've already dug that hole tonight with a backhoe. Did you, as a group of authors, use this as the opportunity to do field research as a tax write-off to go to a bachelor auction?
No, I'm sorry. There were no tax write-offs involved. Just to, some good amusement and entertainment.
I'm disappointed. I am so disappointed.
I know. We just weren't creative enough to get to that point.
My opinion just went like this.
I'm so sorry. I would have hopped a plane to Alaska. I really would have made that sacrifice for the team, but it just didn't work out that way.
On the other hand, she did say, save a fish, ride a cowboy. So
that's true. You do. You kind of go back up for that one.
I know. I was really thinking of the environment when I came up with that theme. Yes.
You that needs to go out as swag. I'm just saying that needs to go out as swag for the book.
It really does.
Need a shirt. Pronto.
All right. So let's make sure everybody knows where to find you, website, social media, and of course the book and the series.
Yes. Well, I mean, the book in the series, you can find it with all major retailers. If you go to my site, ninacrespo.com, you'll also find the Fortunes books that I've written there. And of course, with the authors in the multi-author series, there's a listing there as well of all the books that you may want to read. That's a part of Fortune's Dream House, which is this little book right here. As far as where you can find me, again, ninacrespo.com. All of my social media handles are there. Usually Instagram is where I am the most. You can also find me the third Wednesdays of each month at Inside the Romance Buzz, where I'm one of the co-hosts, and we interview authors and talk about books. Nice.
Well, it's good to see you, Nina, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Good night, everyone.
All right. So, Tori, I know you're kind of on her heels as well. So,
I'm sorry.
What did you learn? What rabbit hole did you fall down? Did you have to do research on exactly how to get those kinds of abs on somebody that's green?
I have waited for 2 years for a sexy alien to come and kidnap me. And no, I'm still here. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I really don't.
No. There could be a group of us at GRL who just go outside and wait together.
Yeah. Come here. I hear her. Take me, please.
Exactly.
Yeah. No. I haven't been taken by a sexy alien, and unfortunately, I really don't think that I could afford to go into any sort of rockets. I'm not up to the Bill Gates standard for going in the freebies that go around the world or wherever.
But what did you learn? What rabbit hole did you fall down working on this book?
Basically, the whole series is all about. I learned an awful lot of things about genome coding and how the DNA worked and all that sort of stuff, because I needed a reason for the females. So I learned way more than I needed to for all of that. I also I have a friend who actually runs the queer sci-fi group, and John, bless him, he gives me all these little tips on what's this thing called on a rocket. What does this happen if he presses this? How can I say this in a better way that sounds a lot more like I know what I'm actually talking about? And he kind of gives me all these tips and translates things for me. So I'm really lucky like that.
Well, before you two decide to abandon us and abandon ship, how do we make sure they can find you and your books as well?
Just basically torikellett.com. There's all my social media on there. There's my newsletter. There's the books. I have a monthly newsletter that comes out on the 15th of every month, and that's always got little character interviews or little short stories. And they sign up for the newsletter. There's also 3 free books that are involved in doing that as well. So that's always a good idea.
They may not come pick you up, but you can be swept away by signing up for the free books. Well, Tori, good to see you too. So glad you could come hang out with us as well. And sorry you were deciding to escape the party.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, everybody.
All right. So now the real party can begin. The trouble can start. Anna, what rabbit hole did you fall down?
Oh dear.
Since there's no tentacles to research.
No, not in this book. Although, because I do, there's tentacles mentioned in the book. You'll have to see how and where. So I had to do some interesting research because there's some toys that are used in this book, and there's Silas has quite a lot of piercings. He has both a Prince Albert and a Jacob's Ladder, so I had to do a little bit of research on piercings and healing, and I had to sort of think about like when he'd gotten them done and whether they would have been healed enough and things like that, because some people research in order to write, and I write in order to be able to research. But I also actually did a fair bit of research, completely unnecessary, also research about producing Broadway shows and the roles of various people in getting Broadway shows like on the stage. So the role of the producer, the role of the production counsel, because that's what Logan is in this story. He's a lawyer. He works for a white shoe law firm. I'm a lawyer too, but I practice employment law. And so this is not something that I'm that familiar with. So I had to do a little bit of research about how lawyers who work in entertainment, like what they do and what their job is, and, you know, like how a Broadway show comes to the stage. So that was sort of interesting. And I read a couple books about that and did a fair bit of research on, you know, like Variety and various other, you know, sort of New York centric Broadway publications. But then there was just a lot of smut research too, and
As
dirty things. As
Someone has to do it.
You're welcome.
Megan, I'm afraid to ask with the Siamese exactly which rabbit hole you fell down, but okay. What research rabbit holes did you fall down in this one?
Well,
or what did you learn? I might be the better question.
Oh, that's such a dangerous question. I could tell you that, you know, in Demons for the Win, I researched the role of the sous chef, and I wanted to make sure that I had things right. And I actually watched The Big Lebowski because there's a character called the Shrewd in there, who's the best friend. And he refers to himself in the third person, and the Shrewd definitely abides. And in Cat's Chance in Hell, I had to, research the Mughal Empire and a lot of Southern Indian cuisine. But really what I learned in these books is that I'm actually much kinkier than I thought I was. That was my big takeaway. I should explain, because I joined a bunch of these Facebook groups that are like the, kink ones, taboo ones. And I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to find somebody reading things. And I was like, this is so great. And then I would read something, like one of their things, like, does any book have this in it? And I was like, oh, I don't think I'd want to read that. And then there'd be the next one, and I'd look and I'd be like, oh, no, I don't think that's for me. And I kept scrolling, and pretty soon I had to tell Mr. Maslow, I was like, I think I'm kind of vanilla. And then I was like, by the end of my research, I was like, I don't know. So actually writing these books, I was like, okay, wait, maybe I'm not so vanilla. These have significant kink in them. So that was my big, that I'm not as vanilla as I was worried about. But you asked.
And are you happy about that?
I think vanilla sex, kinky sex, all of it's good. So as long as you're having it, as long as it's good, I think it's all great.
Kindra.
Oh, how do I follow up with that? Oh, okay. Well, so I mean, unfortunately, I get to look up a lot of the fun stuff that the NSA may be watching my browser history over, for for this particular series, like nuclear fission, atomic bombs, weapons, yeah. But I have learned about myself over the years that I really have fun torturing characters, and then making people really upset with me. So, especially my sister, she is so mad at me. But it is like my number one thing now. I just kill people off and say, "Oh, by the way, you should read this book of mine," and then get to hear her yell at me later. It's great.
She's like your target audience.
She is.
Will
She
I
really
crush
is.
her?
She is. And you know what the bad part is? It's like I like to write a ton of action and she hates action movies, but she is like all over it. And I'm like, okay, well, which one is it? Do you hate it or do you like it? And then I killed a character in a second book who was very minor and she refused to finish the series because I did that. And I was like, don't read the rest of them then because you're really going to be mad.
There can be only one.
Right. That's yeah. So she's still pretty mad at me over that one, I think, because she still refuses to read the rest of them.
Terri, what did you learn? What did you discover?
As I guess I'm the only historical romance person here. One of the big things in historical romance is it's very London and England centric in terms of the market. Most regencies, of course, are in London. The wild thing is Scotland, even though they were part of the United Kingdom by then, was still a whole different place. And nothing that you use in Regency England books works in Scotland. The marriage laws were different, inheritance laws, nobility, peerage, completely different, education, medical school, completely different, property laws, everything. So I went down a rabbit hole of immense dimensions because every time I thought I knew something from that time period, it was the wrong country. And so all the little devices that we would use in a historical romance in that time, it didn't work in Scotland. So I did a lot of research in terms of the time period and then Scottish laws, how they varied. And yeah, it was interesting. And I did get to go to Edinburgh, and Edinburgh is divided into Old Town, medieval based, and New Town, which was built just before the Regency period. So many of the buildings still exist. And so that was fascinating to be able to get to places and see what would have been there at the time. So yeah, huge rabbit hole. And I loved it.
See, you took proper advantage of the tax laws to be able to make it a business expense.
Indeed. Indeed.
I don't think there would have been a good way for anybody for me to do that. I'm sorry.
Not with the NSA watching your computer.
No.
Yeah, we did not want Ed to build a CRISPR lab in the basement. Well, we have got something for literally everyone's to be read pile. So, but before we get out of here, let's make sure everybody knows where to find you guys. Websites, social media, and of course, the books. So, Terri, you're up first.
Well, I can be found. My website is, of course, www.terribrisbin.com. I do have a newsletter, just sent out an issue this week. I don't overdo those. So if you sign up, there are free books and all kinds of nice things to make you want to be part of it, exclusive information. I have an ongoing travel tips column that I get readers and other authors to contribute travel tips. So it's a fun newsletter. Social media, all on my website, all the links. I tend to spend more time on Facebook, Twitter, not so much, and Instagram. I'm still trying to catch hold of Instagram, but that is where I am.
Anna? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go.
Oh, Anna, you're up next.
Okay, so yes, so I can be found at my website, annakensing.com. I'm on Facebook. My participation waxes and wanes depending on how much I'm procrastinating writing. Same with Instagram. Both of those are Anna Kensing. I'm a little bit more frequently on TikTok at Anna Kensing Books. And so this book is called His Dad Will Do, and it's available on all retailers, and also you can find it on my website. So yeah.
Meghan.
So you can find me on my website, meganmaslow.com. It has my links to all my socials, to my newsletter. I spend the most time probably on, definitely on Facebook and also Insta. I can usually, if I have a message there, I'll see it basically. So, and I have a group on Facebook, Maslow's Mischief, Magic, and Murder. And I like to give sneak peeks. I like to give, the cover reveals and things like that first. And then in my newsletter, I like to do things like if fantasy creatures could text and fun little things like that.
You give them opposable thumbs. Kindra.
So typically my website is ksowderauthor.com. It is currently down. I'm working on it because it needs a lot of updating with the new releases and everything, but I can be found on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, not so much. I'm hardly ever on there. You'll mostly find me on Facebook. I also have a Facebook group called The Bloodied Quill, where you can follow everything I'm doing. I even do little fun things in there as well. And the books can be found pretty much everywhere. I think mostly everybody goes to Amazon, but you can find them everywhere, literally.
I'm just going to take advantage of my Wheel of Fucks opportunity and say, fuck Twitter.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's perfect use.
And I have failed miserably trying to be your host this evening. Jem Nettles, you can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentials.net, authoressentialsworkshops.com, thespeculative-fiction-academy.com, creatingprose.com, and of course here at ConTinual. And we will see everybody again soon. Go stack up those to-be-read piles.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Good night.